Thanks, Kate. Hello, everyone. Firstly, I wanted to say that I've found it really enjoyable to just sit here and listen to some really interesting talks. But I think what's made it a particularly special day for me is actually being able to hear a lot more from the people who are participating from the audience as well, actually coming out there and hearing different people's perspectives. The presentations have been from academics, but obviously for us it's very interesting to hear other perspectives on the kind of things that we're thinking about and talking about. So, Kate and Linda, I think you've done a great job facilitating, and thanks for organising the day. I didn't really have a brief for my final talk, but what I've done is I've just written down a few points I frantically scribbled throughout the day, and I've summarised it into 6 points, which I think are things that today's session tells us about placemaking, places, and where we're going with placemaking as a kind of endeavour. So I'm going to briefly touch on those, and some of them are problems in John's terms, some are issues, and some are challenges, I guess. So the first one is that what's really come across is that places are very important. We all care about it, it's what we do in our day jobs, but we've also talked about how many people that we work with or work for actually really care about the places we're actually working on. Now, something that someone said at the beginning of the day was that places are like a friend, and I think that's really true. It really was a significant comment to me. I can go back to places in Melbourne or the UK that I've not been to for 10, 15 years, and yet I feel a connection, and it brings back a whole raft of memories, and places are very important. When you lose a place because it changes or it disappears, that can be quite an emotional experience. So the first thing is really just that places are very important, and that's come across time and time again today, and that our interventions in these places as planners or urban designers or landscape architects or whatever we are have long-term impacts on the people who are actually using that place and care about it. What Michelle's talk at the beginning of the day really drove home for me was that actually we need to go beyond conventional thinking about the way that places are understood and valued. I'd never really thought about the contribution that sound makes to my experience of place and the way that I understand and value that place, and that was a very interesting realization for me. So it's kind of encouraged me to think beyond my conventional thinking on place. The second point, now I realize that was a long first point, and I can rest assured the next 5 are shorter. The second point that I think came out across the day is that one of the biggest challenges we're all facing is actually that we're making places for a diverse group of people. It's come across again and again and again that the people we're making these places for come from a range of backgrounds, a range of countries, different ages, different genders. This is a challenge, it's an opportunity as well, but it's certainly something that we need to deal with. And I think that something that John said in his talk offers us some insights into how we might go about that, and it was about focusing on users. So what are the needs of those users? How does the place work? How does it need to work? How should it work? So that was a very important message for me too. And this ties into what Kate was saying about who we're actually designing places for, who we're actually making these places for. So that was my second kind of theme coming out of the day. The third was that places are parts of a greater whole. This is something that Jan kind of stressed, is the fact that we think about places, but places work well because they're part of a system. They fit into a system, and that's why they work. So thinking about places is as entities, as single entities, unconnected to their context, their surroundings, is unhelpful, and that really encourages us to think about places as parts within a system, within a greater whole. My fourth point is just interdisciplinarity. It's incredible. At the beginning of the day, I just went through and looked at the range of backgrounds that we've all got. This is a room of 30, 35, maybe 40 people. I don't know the exact numbers, but we've got people with experience in backgrounds in economic development, planning, housing, urban design, development management, planning for parklands. We've got place managers, place makers, community development workers, open space assets people, architects, landscape architects, cultural planners, healthy built environments, recreation planners. The list goes on. And I won't go on with the list, but there are lots and lots of different backgrounds. And I think that's a brilliant thing, because if anything, today's session has really shown how different people understand and value places in different ways, and also how many different professions, different disciplines need to be involved in making successful places. So it's great that we could get such a diverse group here today. Fifth point, penultimate point. Okay, final point is was about streets and how important streets are. And we're often tempted to think about places as spaces, open spaces, green spaces, parks, plazas, but streets have come across as a really important thing that we need to think about as places. And then, as part of my final point, we...
is that the fifth one?
This is 5A. Our values. So one thing that Tim said earlier on in the day about Darling Harbour, our own values as placemakers, we need to be careful not to impose our own values on places and assume that just because we see Darling Harbour and think it's a bit tacky, a bit 80s, that it necessarily needs a facelift. And if people value it and use it as it is, then perhaps they know better than us whether it's working as a place.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.